Chapter 1. Breathless, like the words are being pulled out. A 7-year-old boy is down on one knee in the middle of a grocery store aisle, and he is looking at me like I hung every star in the sky. I freeze. My basket drops. A can of soup rolls across the tile and hits the bottom shelf with a hollow clang, and not a single person in this store looks away from us. The boy has dark curly hair that flops over his forehead. His little suit, because, yes, this child is wearing a tiny navy suit, has a crooked pocket square that someone clearly tried to fix and gave up on. His eyes are the deepest shade of gray I have ever seen on a human being. Not blue, not green, gray. Like storm clouds that haven't decided what to do yet. He holds up a plastic ring, the kind from a quarter machine near the exit. "Marry me?" he says. "I picked you because you smell like home." The store goes completely silent. A woman near the bread aisle presses her hand to her chest. Someone's phone comes up. And me, Auren Vale, 23 years old, Omega, a man who has not been chosen for anything in his entire life. I am standing in a grocery store aisle being proposed to by a child with a quarter machine ring and a pocket square that won't lie flat. I should laugh. I should smile politely, hand the ring back, tell him he's adorable, and walk away. That is what a rational person does. But his eyes don't waver. And for the first time in 23 years, someone is looking at me like I am the answer to something. Hi, viewers. I have to ask you something personal right now. Has anyone ever chosen you when you weren't expecting it? A stranger, a child, anyone, and it stopped you completely? Tell me in the comments. I need to know I'm not the only one. I crouch down to his level. His little chin lifts. He doesn't look nervous. He looks certain. The kind of certain that adults spend their whole lives trying to feel and never quite get there. I take the ring. "Yes," I say. And the woman near the bread aisle actually starts crying. The boy, he grabs my hand with both of his and he laughs. Not a polite laugh, a real one, full body, the kind that takes over everything. And something in my chest cracks open in a way that doesn't hurt. He tells me his name is Eli. Just Eli. No last name offered. I don't ask. We walk out of the store together, his hand in mine, and he talks the entire way. He tells me his favorite color is silver. He tells me he once ate 17 gummy bears in under a minute and considers it his greatest achievement. He tells me he doesn't like loud rooms, but he likes loud rain. He's 7. And somehow, he is the most complete person I have ever met. He doesn't ask about me the way people usually do, careful, probing, looking for a weakness. He asks me what clouds taste like. He asks if I think fish dream. He asks if I would rather live in a lighthouse or a treehouse. And when I say lighthouse, he nods like I've passed some important test. I tell him my name, Auren. He tries it out loud twice, then decides it sounds like a sunrise. And after that, he never just says my name without smiling first. We reach the park across from the store. He leads me to a bench like he owns the city. We sit. He's still holding my hand. "I'm going to build you a home," he says. "A real one, with a window that faces east so you see the morning first." My throat tightens. "Eli, where are your parents?" He looks at the fountain in the center of the park. His expression doesn't change, not exactly, but something shifts behind his eyes, something that has no business being in a 7-year-old's face. "They're coming," he says. "They always find me." Not they're at work, not They're nearby. They always find me. I look at him. He looks at the fountain, and the plastic ring on my finger feels suddenly heavier than it should. I open my mouth to ask what that means, and then the temperature drops. Not weather drop, not a cloud passing over the sun. The temperature drops the way it does when something massive enters a space and rearranges the air around it. Every bird in the park goes quiet at the same time. The people on nearby benches look up from their phones without knowing why. I feel it before I see it. 4 presences at the park entrance. And Eli, my laughing, gummy bear-eating, lighthouse-choosing boy, he goes very still beside me. He doesn't look scared. He looks relieved. "I told you," he whispers. "They always find me." I turn slowly, and the 4 figures standing at the entrance to the park are not fathers. They are not uncles. They are not anything I have a word for yet. And the way they are looking at me, not at Eli, at me. The ring on my finger feels like a lock clicking shut. Nobody prepares you for the moment your life splits in 2. Before and after. Before is the grocery store, the soup can, the quarter machine ring. After is the park bench. 4 figures, and a silence so complete it has weight. I don't move. The 4 of them stand at the entrance like they were placed there, like someone arranged them deliberately. Tallest on the left, broadest on the right. The 2 in the middle hold the formation like brackets, like the other 2 are something worth protecting. They are all dressed in dark clothing, not matching, but coordinated in the way that things are when they belong to the same world. They are alpha. I know it the way every omega knows it. Not from a scent test, not from a designation card. You just know. The air around them behaves differently. It gets denser, more deliberate, like it's asking permission to move. And I am sitting on a bench holding a 7-year-old boy's hand, wearing a plastic ring that apparently means something I don't understand yet. Eli still hasn't looked at them. He's looking at me. "Don't be scared of them," he says. "They're loud, but they won't hurt you." Loud. That's the word he uses for 4 men who entered a park and made every bird forget how to sing. I stand up slowly. My legs cooperate, barely. The tallest one on the left moves first. Long strides, controlled, like every step is a decision, not a reflex. He has dark hair cut close on the sides, longer on top, and his jaw looks like it was built to hold the weight of difficult things. His eyes are the same storm cloud gray as Eli's. I look at Eli, back at the man, Eli, the man. Same gray, same certainty, same way of holding completely still while everything else moves around them. "His name is Caius," Eli says without me asking. "He's the bossy one." From 30 feet away, the man named Caius hears this. His mouth does something that is almost a smile. The one on the far right moves next. Broader through the shoulders, a jaw-length cut that he clearly doesn't think about. He walks like he's used to rooms making space for him without being asked. Not aggressive, just inevitable. "That's Rhett," Eli says. "He pretends to be mean so people don't ask him questions." Rhett doesn't almost smile. Rhett just looks at me. The 2 in the middle come forward together. One has a sharp face, angular, precise, like whoever drew him was in a focused mood. He moves carefully, every gesture deliberate. He is looking at me the way scientists look at things they don't have names for yet. "Soren," Eli says. He already knows your name. He knows everything about everyone. Ice crawls up my spine. The last one is the only one who looks like he might be capable of softness. His expression is open, almost warm, the kind of face that makes you trust it before your brain can talk you out of it. But his eyes are doing something his face isn't. His eyes are tracking everything. "And that's Ren," Eli says. "He's the nice one. Be careful of him the most." I look down at this child. "Eli, who are these men?" He looks up at me, and the certainty on his face, that complete, unshakable certainty, deepens into something older than 7 years should be able to carry. "They're my father's. 4 men, 1 child." My brain starts doing math I don't have enough information to finish. Caius reaches us first. Up close, he is more than tall. He is present in a way that takes up space that isn't just physical. He looks at Eli for exactly 1 second, a full accounting, a check, a relief he won't say out loud, and then he looks at me. "You're the stub he chose," Caius says. Not a question, not an introduction. A statement delivered like a verdict. "I'm Auren," I say, "and I'd really like someone to explain what's happening." Rhett steps up beside Caius. "You accepted the proposal," Rhett says. "That's what's happening." I look at the ring on my finger, the plastic ring, from a quarter machine. "He's 7, I say. "Yes," Soren says quietly from just behind Caius's left shoulder. His voice is low and precise. "He is." Ren steps forward. He smiles. It is a warm, genuine, entirely terrifying smile. "We should go somewhere private," he says gently. "There's a lot to explain." "A lot?" I repeat. Somehow that's the scariest part. "A considerable amount," Soren confirms. I look at Eli. Eli looks at my hand, at the ring, at me. "I meant it," he says, "every word." And the thing is, I believe him. I just don't know yet what I actually agreed to. Ren gestures politely toward the park exit, and all 4 of them wait. Like I already belong to something I haven't been introduced to yet. Tightly controlled, someone holding they take me to do does not look like trouble. That is the first thing that worries me. Trouble should look like trouble. It should have warning signs, peeling paint, a smell, a feeling at the door that makes your feet want to go the other direction. But this building has floor-to-ceiling windows and a lobby with warm lighting and a front desk staffed by a woman who doesn't look up when 4 Alpha Kings and 1 Omega walk through the door like this is a Tuesday. Because apparently for them, it is. We take an elevator that moves too smoothly. No jolt at the start, no small mechanical complaint at the top. Just seamless, effortless ascent. The kind that costs money that most people don't think about spending. Eli stands between me and Caius. He's holding my hand again. I let him. The elevator opens into a wide room with high ceilings and walls that are mostly window. The city stretches out below us in every direction like a map made of light. I can see the park from here, the bench where Eli proposed, the fountain. It looks smaller from up here. Everything does. Rhett moves directly to the far side of the room and stands there like he was assigned that corner. Soren goes to a low table near the windows and opens something, a folder, a file, I can't see, and begins reading it without sitting down. Ren gestures me toward the couch with that same warm, careful smile, and I sit because my legs are making that decision for me. Eli climbs up beside me. Caius stays standing. "We want to explain everything," Caius says, "but I need to ask you something first." "When Eli proposed," he says, What did you feel? I blink. That is not what I expected. I don't see how that— Please, Soren says without looking up from his file. It matters more than you know. I look at Eli. He's watching me, open and patient and completely unafraid of my answer. Like whatever I say, he already knows it. Honestly, because lying feels impossible in this room. I felt seen, I say. The room shifts. Not visually, not loudly, but something in the air between the four men changes. A current, a recognition, something passing between them that I don't have the vocabulary for. Caius exhales slowly, but something moved behind his eyes. Rhett turns from his corner, but his voice is quieter than before. He's the one, Rhett says. Soren closes his file. Steady, precise, like he is about to read a diagnosis. Auren, he says, what we're about to tell you is going to require you to stay calm. Not because the information is manageable, but because your emotional response in the next few minutes matters physiologically. Physiologically, I repeat. Yes, he says. Your body will react to this information. We need it to react slowly. My hand tightens around Eli's. Ren sits down in the chair across from me. His warmth is still there, but it has an edge now. Not sharp, just present. The way a doctor is warm when they're about to say something that will change your week. Eli is sick, Ren says. I look at the boy beside me. He doesn't look sick. He looks like someone who ate 17 gummy bears in under a minute and considers it his finest hour. What kind of sick? Carefully, like placing something fragile on a surface. His body, Soren says, carries the bloodline of 4 alpha lineages simultaneously. It's something that has not existed before. Biologically, a body is not built to contain that convergence. The energy is— He pauses, finding the exact word— competing. Competing, I say. Destroying, Rhett says from his corner. No softening, just the word. Caius shoots him a look. Rhett doesn't apologize. My chest compresses. He's been deteriorating, Ren says gently. Slowly, but the rate increased 6 months ago. The 4 of us have done everything within our ability. And outside of it, Caius adds very quietly, something in his voice that he didn't plan to let out. I look at Eli. Eli is watching me, still patient, still certain. What does any of this have to do with me? I ask. Soren opens his folder again. He slides 1 page across the table toward me. I don't pick it up yet. There is an old covenant, he says, older than any of our family lines. It states that when an alpha convergence bloodline reaches critical deterioration, there exists one form of stabilization. He pauses. A willing omega. One who carries a specific biological marker. One who, when they come into contact with the child, experiences— He stops, looks at me directly. Belonging, he says. I heard myself say it 20 minutes ago. I felt seen. I felt belonging. My voice comes out smaller than I intend. What does a willing omega do? Ren folds his hands. So soft, like he's trying to cushion a fall he can't prevent. They share their life force, he says. Gradually, willingly, over time. It stabilizes the child. It keeps the competing bloodlines from tearing him apart, Rhett finishes. The city below us hums. Eli's hand is still in mine. And the Omega? I say. What happens to them? Ren doesn't answer immediately. And that pause is its own answer. Ren, I say, quietly, carefully, like every word costs something. The process is gradual, he says. It is not immediate. There would be time. There would be... Ren, Caius says. Ren stops. Caius looks at me. Direct, no softening. The truth given cleanly because he thinks I deserve that. The omega weakens, he says, as Eli stabilizes. It is a transfer, not equal. The omega gives more than they receive. How much more? I ask. Eli's fingers tighten around mine. I'm sorry, he whispers. I didn't want to tell you like this. I wanted you to know me first. The plastic ring on my finger, the quarter machine ring, the bench, the fountain, the gummy bears and the lighthouse, and the name that sounds like a sunrise. He wanted me to know him first. And I do. I already do. The choice sitting right in front of me, enormous and quiet. And the worst part, the most terrifying part, is that I already know what I'm going to do. The voice of someone who has made a decision and is now watching the world react to it. I don't say it out loud. Not yet. I just sit there, Eli's hand in mine, the city below us doing its ordinary things. Cabs moving, lights changing, people going home. And I think about what it means that I walked into a grocery store this morning to buy soup, and I am now sitting in a high-rise being told that a child's life is connected to mine in a way that science and something older than science agree on. I think about the soup. It's probably still on the floor of aisle 7. But back to the room. Caius is watching me. He's been watching me since I sat down, and I've been aware of it the whole time, the same way you're aware of weather, not always looking at it, but always knowing it's there. Steady, direct. I meet his eyes. You knew, I say, when Eli proposed. You knew he'd found someone. Caius doesn't answer immediately. That is its own answer. We knew the markers, he says finally. We knew what to look for in an omega. We did not know who. We did not know when. He pauses. We did not expect him to handle the introduction himself. Across the room, Rhett makes a sound. Not a laugh, not quite, but something adjacent. He told us he had a plan, Rhett says. We assumed that meant something with less of a, he pauses, public venue. Despite everything, a short, helpless sound escapes me. A grocery store aisle, a pocket square, a quarter machine ring. Eli looks pleased with himself. He has the same expression I imagine he had after the gummy bear incident. I look at all 4 of them in turn. Caius, the authority, the one who tells the truth even when it lands hard. Rhett, the wall, the one who says the thing everyone else softens. Auren, the mind, already 3 steps ahead of the conversation, reading me the way he reads that file. Ren, the warmth, the most dangerous kind because you lean toward it before you realize it has weight. I need to understand the specifics, I say. Not the careful version, the actual version. Auren looks up from his file. Ask, he says. I choose my first question carefully. How long does Eli have if nothing changes? Silence. Caius folds his arms. Months, he says. Single digits. And if I agree? The transfer begins immediately, Auren says. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the stabilization requires sustained proximity and willing biological connection. Over weeks, months. The child's competing bloodlines align to the omega's life frequency and begin, he pauses, borrowing from it. Borrowing, I repeat. We chose that word carefully, Ren says. I look at Rhett. Rhett looks back at me. Taking, he says. Slowly, with your permission, but taking. I hold that. Steadily, not accusatory. I genuinely need to know. Did you look for other Omegas? I ask, before Eli found me? The four of them exchange a look, the kind that has a whole conversation in it. Soren answers. The markers are rare, he says. The biological signature that responds to Eli's convergence, it exists in a very small number of Omegas globally. We have been, he chooses the word with precision, searching for 14 months. 14 months. And in 14 months, I say, I'm the first one who said yes. Ren's expression shifts. You're the first one we found, Ren says carefully. I read what he doesn't say, but if you'd found others, and they'd said no. Caius directly. Then we would have respected that, he says. The covenant requires willingness. It cannot be forced. It would not work if it were. It has to be chosen, Rhett says. And somehow, coming from him, it sounds like the most important thing anyone has said in this room. Or it means nothing. I look at Eli. He's been still throughout this whole conversation. Not bored, the opposite. He's been listening with the focus of someone who knows every word matters, who has possibly sat in rooms like this more times than a 7-year-old should ever have to. Were you scared? I ask. When you came to find me? He thinks about it, honestly. Eli doesn't give quick answers. He gives real ones. No, he says. I knew you'd say yes. How? Simply devastating in its simplicity. Because you looked lonely, he says. And lonely people understand what it means to need someone. I have been many things in 23 years. I have been overlooked and passed over and left in the waiting rooms of other people's lives. But I have never been read so completely by anyone, let alone by a 7-year-old in a navy suit with a crooked pocket square. Steadying the decision forming into words now, I turn to Caius. Direct, clear, no more careful. What do I need to sign? I ask. The four of them react differently. Caius, something releases in his jaw, one tight muscle letting go. Rhett, he looks at the window. Soren, he reaches into the folder. Ren, his eyes go bright in a way he doesn't try to hide. Eli, he just takes my hand again, like he never doubted it. Soren places the document in front of me. It is not a small document. I look at it, then at Soren. Is there anything in here that contradicts what you just told me? Precisely, no hesitation. No, he says. I believe him. I don't entirely know why, but I do. My hand moves toward the page. And that is the moment Caius says, low, careful like a man choosing to give something he didn't plan to. Before you sign, there is one more thing. I go still. One more thing, I say. The way he says the next words, quiet and direct and carrying something heavy. The transfer, he says. It is not just proximity. It is not just time. He stops, holds the next part for exactly 1 second. The four of us are bound to Eli's bloodline. If you enter this covenant, you enter it with all of us, not as a stranger, not as a... He stops again. Soren, finishing like a door opening onto something vast. As family, he says, the covenant binds you to this bloodline, to Eli, and to us. Pause the document in front of me. The ring on my finger. Eli's hand in mine. Breathless, all the air gone. I look at 4 men I have known for less than 2 hours. And somewhere below us, in an aisle of an ordinary grocery store, a can of soup is still sitting where I dropped it. Barely, the last breath before a dive. I pick up the pen. Hollow, like speaking from inside a room where the sound doesn't carry right. I sign my name. The pen moves. The letters form. Auren Vale, in my ordinary handwriting on a page that is not ordinary at all. And the moment the pen lifts, the moment the last letter finishes, something moves through the room. Not wind, not sound. Trying to pressure, deep and low, like the frequency before a storm. It starts in my chest and radiates outward, and for 1 full second, every nerve in my body reports in at the same time. Then it stops. Eli exhales beside me, like he'd been holding his breath for months and just now remembered how to let it go. I look at my hand. The plastic ring catches the light. I thought signing a document would feel like a door closing. It feels like one opening. I don't know yet which is worse. Caius takes the document. He doesn't look at it. He already knows what it says. He looks at me. The authority is still there, but something underneath it is different now. Not softer exactly, more honest. "How are you?" he asks. "I just signed something that will take years off my life," I say. "How do you think I am?" He doesn't flinch. "I think you're frightened and trying not to show it," he says. "And I think you're doing well." That was not what I expected from him. Rhett is still at the window. His back is to the room.
His shoulders are set in a way I'm beginning to understand means he's processing something he doesn't want witnessed. Carefully, because Rhett seems like a man who doesn't respond well to being read out loud. I don't say anything to him. He'll come to me or he won't. I can feel that much already. Soren sets the folder aside and sits down for the first time since I arrived. He sits across from me, elbows on knees, and looks at me with that precise, unnerving focus. Even not unkind, just exact. "There are things you need to know about the process," he says, "now that it's begun." I sit straighter. "It's already begun?" I say, carefully. "The moment you signed with full willingness," he says, "the covenant activated. Not dramatically. You won't feel it all at once." He pauses. "You may have already noticed the first sign." I think about the pressure in my chest when the pen lifted. "The wave," I say. Soren nods once. "Precisely. That was your life frequency acknowledging the bond," he says. "It will happen again, periodically. The intervals will shorten as Eli stabilizes." He holds my eyes. "As that happens, you will feel lighter. Not in a good way. In the way that things feel when they are losing weight they needed." I let that sit. "Tell me what to watch for," I say. Something shifts in his expression. Not warmth exactly. Respect. He talks for 10 minutes. I listen to all of it. Fatigue. The specific kind not tired from a long day, but tired from the inside out. Appetite changes. Temperature sensitivity. And one thing that he pauses before saying, the way you pause before handing someone something breakable. Carefully, like setting something down gently. "You will feel moments of profound contentment," Soren says. "This is not the covenant rewarding you. It is the biological feedback loop." Eli's stabilization creates a response in the bonded omega that registers as, he searches for the exact word, peace. "Peace," I repeat. "Yes, it will feel real because it is real. But it is also borrowed.
from the same reserve the transfer draws from. He meets my eyes fully. Do not mistake it for health. I hold that. Because I need to know this too. Will it hurt? I ask. Ren answers this one. Not the way you're imagining, he says. It isn't sharp. It isn't sudden. He folds his hands. It is more like, he thinks, the way a candle burns. You don't feel the wax leaving. You just eventually notice the flame is lower. I look at the candle analogy from every angle and I do not find a comfortable one. That says the least comforting metaphor I've ever heard, I say. Ren blinks. Then he laughs. A real one. And it is such a human sound in this enormous, heavy room that something in my chest eases exactly 1 degree. Even Rhett's shoulders shift slightly at the window. Eli, who has been sitting quietly beside me through all of Soren's clinical precision, reaches up and pats my arm. I'll make it worth it, he says. The thing about Eli is that when he says something, it doesn't sound like a promise. It sounds like a fact that simply hasn't happened yet. Do I know, I say. And I mean it. I mean it in a way that frightens me, because it means the thing I signed my name to isn't just a document anymore. It's already real. Caius moves. He crosses the room and stops in front of me. Up close, the storm cloud gray of his eyes is more complex than I clocked in the park. There are layers in it, things that have been decided and things that haven't been. And underneath the authority, something that might be the beginning of gratitude, though I don't think he'd call it that. You don't have to stay here tonight, he says. We're not. He stops, select the word carefully, claiming you. Not like that. You have your life, your space. We will not disrupt it more than the covenant requires. I look at him. What does the covenant require? I ask. Soren answers, because Caius seems to be choosing not to. Proximity, Soren says, for the transfer to function. You cannot be further than a certain distance from Eli for extended periods. The bond requires nearness. How near? I ask. The 4 men exchange another one of those looks. Ren, gently, the same building, he says. Ideally. Eventually, the same home. I look around this enormous, high-ceiling, city view room. Quietly, almost to myself. I have an apartment, I say. Caius, quietly, You did, he says. Not threatening, just factual, and somehow that's more unsettling than a threat. You moved fast, I say. The smallest, almost smile on his face. We've been waiting 14 months, he says. Eli's hand finds mine again. Softly, his voice doing that thing where it sounds like a fact and not a question. You're home now, he says. The plastic ring on my finger, the document with my signature on it. 4 men I have known for 2 hours standing in various positions of careful attention around a room that is apparently now mine too. I think about the can of soup on the floor of aisle 7. Breathless, caught between something that might be grief and something that might be the most awake I have ever felt. And the worst part? The worst part is that Eli is right. Fracturing at the edges. It does feel like home. And I don't know yet whether that feeling is mine or whether it's the first thing the covenant is taking. Chapter 6. The voice of someone standing at the edge of something vast, looking down and not stepping back. It does feel like home.
And I don't know yet whether that feeling is mine or whether it's the first thing the covenant is taking. Because here is the thing about standing at the edge of a decision you've already made. You can keep looking at how far down it goes, or you can turn around and look at what you're standing on. I choose to look at what I'm standing on. Eli is beside me. That's enough. Caius shows me the room they've prepared. I don't ask when they prepared it. I don't ask how they knew the size of the bed, or that I sleep better with the window cracked, or that I cannot function without a lamp on the left side of the room and nothing on the right. I don't ask because the answer will either be Soren has a file or they guessed correctly, and both of those things require more processing than I have left in me tonight. The room is on the same floor as Eli's. That part I appreciate without saying so. Ren brings food. Not a full meal, something simple. Soup, which is either a coincidence or the universe has a sense of humor that I am not equipped for right now. I eat it. It's good. I hate that it's good. I wanted something to be wrong with this place, something small and manageable to be annoyed about. But the soup is good, and the room is right, and Eli sits cross-legged on my bed talking about cloud shapes until his eyes get heavy. He falls asleep mid-sentence. Something about cumulus clouds looking like retired football players. The laugh that comes out of me is quiet and costs nothing and feels like the first real thing I've done all day. I pull the blanket up. He doesn't stir. Standing there, looking at him, the weight of everything settling. He is so small. 7 years old and carrying 4 bloodlines in a body that was never designed for it. And he proposed to a stranger in a grocery store with a quarter machine ring because he decided I smelled like home. I would do it again. I would sign that document 10 times. I sit in the chair by the window. The city hums below. And that is when Rhett appears in the doorway. No warning, just there, the way weather appears. He doesn't knock. He looks at Eli, then at me, then at the window. But he chose to come, and that means something. You should sleep, he says. I know, I say. He doesn't leave. I wait. Like the words were stored somewhere inconvenient, and he had to dig for them. You didn't run, he says. I look at him. No, I say. Rhett, looking at the window, jaw set. The others we found, he says. In 14 months, 3 omegas with the markers. He stops. They all ran, before we finished explaining. He pauses. One of them made it to the elevator. I feel the weight of that. I don't blame them, I say. He looks at me then, direct, the first time since the park. Neither do I, he says. And then he leaves. No closing statement, no softening, just the absence of him where he was. I look at Eli sleeping. 3 omegas ran. And I am sitting in a chair by a window in a building I didn't know existed this morning, watching a child sleep, wearing a plastic ring, and feeling, despite every rational objection, firm and frightened and certain all at once, exactly where I'm supposed to be. Then the first wave hits. It is not dramatic. It is not a collapse. It is quiet, and it comes from the inside out, a warmth that moves through me like the first light through a curtain. And for exactly 12 seconds, I feel more at peace than I have in 23 years. Soren's voice in my head. Do not mistake it for health. I close my eyes. I count the seconds. 12. Then it fades, and the absence of it aches more than it should.
That was the covenant. That was the first transfer. My hand goes to my chest where the warmth was. And somewhere down the hall, I know without being told, Eli is breathing easier. Chapter 7. Shh, morning comes fast when you don't fully sleep. I am aware of every hour passing, every shift of light through the cracked window, every small sound the building makes when it thinks no one is listening. I am listening. I don't know how to stop. By 6 in the morning, I am dressed and standing in the kitchen because I need to do something with my hands, and the kitchen is the only room in this apartment that feels like a place where normal things happen. Eli finds me 20 minutes later. Like he slept 12 hours and woke up restored. "You made eggs," he says. "I made eggs," I confirm. He climbs onto the counter stool with the ease of someone who has done it 1,000 times. "Caius burns them," he says very seriously. Good to know. Eli watching me cook with the focused attention of a small person who considers this important data. "Did you feel it?" he asks. I go still for exactly 1 second. Carefully, not turning around. Feel what? Quietly, not fooled. Eli is never fooled. "The warm thing," he says. "At night. It happens when I stop hurting." I set the spatula down, turning to face him, honest. "Yes," I say. "I felt it." He nods like this confirms something he already knew but wanted me to confirm anyway. "Does it scare you?" he asks. I think about lying. I decide against it. Eli deserves better than managed truths. "A little," I say. He considers this. Quietly, very deliberate. "It scares me too," he says, "when it doesn't come." Pause that lands somewhere deep. I put the eggs on a plate and slide it to him. He eats with the single-minded dedication of someone who has decided this is the best meal he has ever had. And I watch him and feel that thing in my chest again. Not the covenant warmth, not the transfer, just mine. The others arrive one by one. Caius first, because Caius strikes me as a person who is always first and considers lateness a personal moral failing. He comes into the kitchen, stops when he sees me at the stove, and recalibrates in the way large, controlled people do when something unexpected is occupying their usual space. "You cook," he says. "You burn eggs," I say. Eli points at me like I've scored a point. Caius sits down. Soren arrives with his phone already open, reading something, and manages to take a coffee cup from the cabinet and fill it without looking up from the screen. I'm not sure if that's impressive or concerning. Possibly both. Ren comes in last, and he is the only one who says good morning like he means it as a full sentence and not just a sound people make. "Good morning, Auren." I hand him a plate, caught off guard by how ordinary this feels. "Morning," I say. Morning light coming through the windows, Eli stealing the last of the eggs off Soren's plate when Soren isn't watching. It feels like something that has been happening for years. It has been happening for 11 hours. And then Soren looks up from his phone. "Your vitals from last night," he says. "The transfer was stronger than projected for a first event." Caius sets his cup down. Ren looks at Soren. Rhett, who has been leaning against the far counter eating in silence, goes still. "Stronger how?" I ask. "Duration and intensity both exceeded the model's first cycle estimate," he says. "It suggests the bond is responsive, more so than prior covenants in the record." He pauses. "That is good for Eli." I hear the part he didn't say. "And for me?" I ask.
Soren holds my eyes. It means we need to be precise, he says. About monitoring. About pace. He sets his phone face down on the counter. I will need to track your levels weekly. I should have mentioned this last night. I apologize for the delay. An apology feels like a seismic event. Okay, I say, low but not trying to hide it from me. How responsive, he asks. Soren picks up his phone again. Significantly, he says. The kitchen holds that. Rhett, from his corner, flat and direct. What does that mean for his timeline? He asks. The word timeline sits on the counter between all of us like something none of us want to pick up. Soren doesn't answer immediately. That pause does what Rhett's word did. Soren, I say. Precisely. Looking at me directly, he won't soften it, and I've already shown I don't want him to. The original estimate, he says, assumed a gradual bond, standard curve, years of mild transfer before any significant depletion. He pauses. If the bond is this responsive from the first night, the curve changes, Kaya says. The timeline shortens, he says. Eli has stopped eating. He is looking at his plate. And the fact that he already knew this was possible makes it worse. I'm sorry, he says again. The second time he's said it. The second time it has hit me in exactly the same place. I reach over and cover his hand with mine. Firmly, so he hears it. Don't, I say. We knew the cost. The cost doesn't change the choice. Caius is looking at me. Something in his face I can't name yet, not gratitude, something older than that. Ren, carefully, there may be a way, he says, to moderate the transfer rate. Soren has been working on a supplemental protocol. It isn't guaranteed, but it could. Soren, cutting in not rudely, just exact, extend the Omega's functional timeline, he says. Potentially, if the variables align. He looks at me. I would need your full cooperation. Daily check-ins, dietary adjustments, rest compliance. Rest compliance, I repeat, dryly because that is a phrase only Soren would use for the concept of sleeping. The smallest crack in Soren's composure, not a smile, but the place where one would go. Sleep, he says, adequately, consistently. I look at all four of them. 4 men who have been searching for 14 months. 4 men who found me yesterday. 4 men who are now sitting in a kitchen at 6 in the morning trying to figure out how to keep me alive long enough to save the boy between us. Quietly, a decision that doesn't feel like a decision, because it was already made the moment I picked up the pen. Tell me what you need, I say. All of it. I'm not running. Rhett looks at me from his corner. Flat, but his eyes are doing something his voice won't. We know, he says. Hard stop, and then from down the hall a sound. A monitor. Soren is on his feet before the sound finishes. Caius is right behind him. I stand. What is that? I ask. Ren already moving, his warmth replaced by something sharp and fast. Eli's vitals, he says. The transfer last night, it may have moved too fast. He looks back at me once. Stay here. I look at Eli's empty stool. His plate is still there. Half-eaten eggs. Breathless, the Covenant warmth is nowhere. What I feel instead is cold. And the monitor down the hall does not stop. Chapter 8. Raw, immediate, no buffer. I do not stay in the kitchen. I know Ren said to. I know the rational, careful, reasonable thing is to stand by the counter and wait and let the people who know what they're doing do what they know. I know all of that. I'm already down the hall. The door to Eli's room is open.
Caius is on one side of the bed. Soren is at the monitor, hands moving fast across a panel I didn't know was there, built into the wall behind the headboard. Ren is speaking to Eli in a low, steady voice, and Eli is awake. His eyes are open, and they are too bright, and his small hands are gripping the blanket in a way that tells me he is trying not to let anyone see how much it hurts. Something in me splits open quietly, like a seam giving way. I cross the room. I sit on the edge of the bed. I take his hands. His grip immediately shifts from the blanket to me, and he holds on with everything he has. Steady for him, not for me. I'm right here, I say. Eli, through his teeth, fighting to keep his voice even. It's just a spike, he says. Soren says I get these. I look at Soren. Soren does not confirm or deny. He is reading the monitor with that precise, narrowed focus, and the fact that he is not speaking tells me everything I need to know about how routine this is not. Controlled, low to Soren. What happened? I ask. Soren, not looking away from the screen. The transfer rate last night accelerated the bloodline competition, he says. The 4 lineages responded to the stabilization by realigning, aggressively. The body interprets realignment as conflict before it resolves as order. He pauses. This is temporary. It will pass. How long? I ask. He finally looks at me. An hour, he says. Possibly less, now that you're here. I hear that. Now that I'm here, I repeat. Steadily, precise, but there is something in it that is not entirely clinical. The bond responds to proximity, he says. Your presence accelerates the resolution. It is measurable. He looks at the monitor. It's already changing. I look at the screen. I don't understand the numbers, but the line that was jagged when I walked in is smoothing. Not all the way, not fast, but steadily, like someone running a hand along a wrinkled surface. Eli's grip on my hands loosens just slightly. See? He says. Told you, he says. Just a spike. I look at his face. The brightness in his eyes has softened. The pain is still there, but it is further away than it was 30 seconds ago. I don't trust my voice at full volume right now. Yeah, I say. Just a spike. Caius steps back from the bed. His jaw is tight in the way it gets when he is managing something large in a small space. He looks at me over Eli's head, and I look back, and we have a conversation entirely without words. He is asking if I understand what I just did. I am telling him yes. He is asking if I am going to be able to do it again. I am telling him I don't have a choice, and we both know it. Just to me, just this. Thank you, he says. 2 words, from a man who treats language like a resource to be rationed. Don't thank me, I say. Just help me figure out how to not burn through myself in a month. Not a laugh, but the place where one almost was. Ren checks Eli's temperature, his pulse, does the quiet, thorough thing that tells me he's done this more times than he can count, and each time it still costs him something. Something I didn't expect to feel about any of these men. I feel the cost on all of them. The 14 months aren't abstract anymore. They are in the lines of Caius's jaw, and the precision of Soren's hands, and the controlled blankness of Rhett's face, and the careful warmth Ren weaponizes to keep everyone, including himself, from coming apart. Eli looks at me. Sirius, the 7-year-old, and the ancient thing inside him both present at once. Are you tired? He asks. I think about the 12 seconds of warmth last night, the cold that replaced it, the way I counted the seconds like they were coins I'd been given and wasn't sure I'd get more of. Honestly, a little, I say. He nods the nod of someone who knows what that means and is deciding how to carry it. Quietly, fierce Eli's particular brand of certainty, smaller now but no less solid. I'm going to get better fast, he says, so it doesn't take as much. Soren, without looking up from the monitor, that is not how the covenant functions, he says. Eli, unimpressed. I know, he says. I'm doing it anyway. I look at Soren. Soren looks at me, precisely, quietly, and I think that is the closest Soren gets to fond. He has been saying that for 6 months, he says. I look back at Eli. Something in my throat. I believe him. I believe him the way I believed him in the park when he said they always find me, like the truth of it was already settled and the universe just hadn't caught up yet. The monitor steadies. The line is smooth now, even. Eli's shoulders drop from around his ears. Ren exhales. Caius uncrosses his arms. Rhett, in the doorway, finally moves not away, but to the wall beside the door, like he's decided to stay within reach. The room recalibrates around Eli's steady breath. Quietly, to all of them and none of them, he's going to be okay, I say. I say it like a fact that hasn't happened yet, like Eli would. Caius, low, and I think he is learning how to accept things from people who are not him. Yes, he says. He is. Then Eli, eyes drooping now, the spike draining him towards sleep. Mumbling, nearly gone. Auren, he says. Right here, I say. Barely audible, the last thing before sleep takes him. Don't go far, he says. I don't answer in words. I stay exactly where I am, his hand in mine, the monitor steady, the city outside his window doing its indifferent, ordinary things. And then I feel it. Not the covenant warmth this time. Something different. Trembling, trying to name it. A pull, deep in the center of my chest. Not painful, not warm, just directional, like a compass finding north. Barely the voice going quiet. I look at my hand, the one holding Eli's. The plastic ring is gone. I stare at my finger. I did not take it off. I did not lose it. It was there this morning. Breathless, cold, completely cold. And in its place, on the same finger, is a mark. Not ink, not a bruise. A mark the color of deep silver, clean-edged, shaped like something between a seal and a scar. Trembling the covenant. It isn't just in a document anymore. Devastating. It's in my skin. The voice of someone who has been changed and is only now seeing it in the light. I stare at the mark for a long time. No one notices immediately. Eli is asleep. Ren is recording vitals. Soren is at the monitor. Caius has stepped into the hall. Only Rhett sees it. He crosses the room in 4 steps. He takes my hand without asking. He turns it over, studies the mark. His expression does not change, but his grip does. It tightens just slightly, the way a person grips something they are afraid of losing. And this is the most words I have heard him say in a row. Soren, he says. Soren looks up. He sees the mark. He crosses the room. He takes my hand from Rhett also without asking, but I don't object, because Soren's hands are careful in the way that instruments are careful, and he examines it with that precise, unblinking focus. The room has shifted again. Ren leans in. Caius returns from the hall. All 4 of them, standing around my hand, around this silver mark on my ring finger that was not there an hour ago. Dry because it's that or something else entirely. Is this bad? I ask. It is not in any record I have read, he says. That didn't answer my question, I say. Precisely, and I think this is Soren's version of reassurance. It is not bad, he says. It is unprecedented. He releases my hand. The covenant mark typically appears after weeks of transfer, sometimes months. He looks at Caius. It has been less than 24 hours. What does that mean? He asks. And here is the thing about Soren. He will not say something he doesn't know. So when he pauses this long, it means he is choosing between two things he does know. It means the bond is not standard, he says finally. It means Auren's frequency and Eli's bloodline are not in a slow merge. He pauses. They are in a rapid one. Ren, carefully. How rapid? He asks. Weeks, Soren says. Not months. If the rate holds, Eli could stabilize fully in weeks. Ren, bright, genuinely, but watching me. That's Soren. That's the best possible. Not letting him finish because Soren finishes his own sentences and he always finishes them completely. It also means, he says, that the depletion on Auren's side accelerates proportionally. The brightness in Ren's face changes. I look at Soren. Steady, direct. I need the number. How much time? I ask. If the rate holds and we do not intervene, he says, the supplemental protocol becomes not optional. It becomes critical. He pauses. We begin today. I nod. Then we begin today, I say. Caius is looking at me with that thing in his face again. The one I still don't have a word for. It has been growing since the kitchen. Since I said, I'm not running. Since I sat on Eli's bed and took his hands, and the monitor line smoothed. Low, carefully, like he is handling something he is not used to handling. Auren, he says, are you frightened? Pause. I think about lying. I think about Eli, who asked me the same thing and got the truth. Quietly, yes, I say. But I'm also the most certain I've ever been about anything. I pause. Those two things can be true at the same time. Caius looks at me for a long moment. Quietly, and it is the first time he sounds like a person instead of an authority. Yes, he says, they can. The next 3 weeks move like water, fast in some places, still in others. The kind of time that rearranges itself when you look back at it. Soren's protocol is exacting, and I follow every part of it. Meals at specific times, rest intervals, daily check-ins where he takes my readings with the focused attention of someone who treats data like it is sacred, because for Soren, it is. The transfers happen every night. The 12 seconds of warmth become 20, then 30. Then a full minute of something that starts in my chest and moves outward to my fingertips. And I count every second, and every morning I wake up and check the mark on my finger. It is deepening, growing more defined. And every morning Eli comes into my room before anyone else and sits on the end of my bed and tells me something new. What he dreamed, what question he's been holding since yesterday. Why he thinks the color silver is the most honest color because it doesn't pretend to be something it isn't. I think I understand why he chose me. Not because of the markers, not because of the covenant biology, because I also don't pretend to be something I'm not. By the end of the second week, Eli runs, not shuffles, not walks carefully the way he was walking when I first noticed it, that slight conservation of energy. That small economy of movement. He runs, down the hall, into the kitchen, full speed, arms out, into Rhett,
who catches him without a word and holds him for exactly 3 seconds before setting him down and going back to his coffee like nothing happened. I see Rhett's hands stay on Eli's shoulder for just a moment longer than necessary. I do not say anything. Some things are not mine to name. By the third week, Soren's readings have changed. He shows me the numbers without me asking. He has started doing that, showing me my own data before I request it, which I think is his way of including me in decisions about my own body. And I think that is the most respectful thing anyone has done for me in years. His bloodlines, Soren says. Look. I look. The competing lines on the monitor, the 4 frequencies that have been fighting each other in Eli's body since before he could name them, are converging. Not fighting, converging, finding each other. My, they're settling, I say. Soren, and this is the closest I have seen him come to undone. Yes, he says. Because of you, he says. Your frequency gave them something to align to. I look at the silver mark on my finger. Like a tuning fork, I say. Soren looks at me, and this time, there is something in it that I think is wonder. Exactly like that, he says. And then, that night, the transfer comes. And it is different. Not the 12 seconds, not the minute. It moves through me and it does not stop. It moves through me and it builds, and I count, and I reach 30 seconds, and 60, and 90, and it is still building, and it is warm, and enormous, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all. It just takes, and I can feel the edges of myself going soft. And then it releases, all at once, like a held breath. I am on my knees on the floor of my room. I don't remember moving there. And from down the hall, silence. The monitor is not alarming. The building is not moving. The city is doing its ordinary things. I press my hand to my chest. The warmth is gone, every bit of it. And what replaces it is not cold. Quiet. Just quiet. Like after a storm that took everything and left the air clean. I look at my hand. The mark on my finger is no longer silver. It is gold. The voice of someone standing on the other side of something enormous, looking back at what it cost, and finding that the accounting is not what they expected. I stay on the floor for a while. Not because I can't get up, because I need a moment where nothing is required of me, just the floor, just my breath, just the quiet that replaced the warmth. Then the door. Caius. He doesn't say anything when he sees me on the floor. He crosses the room and crouches down to my level and looks at me the way he looked at Eli in the park, one full accounting, a check, a relief he won't say out loud. "Talk to me," he says. I hold up my hand. He sees the mark, the gold. Something moves across his face, the thing I have never had a word for. And now I do. Hope. He takes my hand in both of his, carefully, the way Soren handles data. "It's done," he says. I look at him. "Is it?" I ask. He stands. He pulls me up with him. He holds my shoulders until I find my footing and then steps back exactly one pace, close enough, far enough. "Go see him," he says. I go. Eli's door is open. The monitor is off, not alarmed, not silent in the wrong way. Off, because it is no longer needed. Eli is sitting up in bed. He is not gripping the blanket. His eyes are the storm cloud gray I have known since a grocery store aisle. But the storm has passed, and what's left is clear. Deep. Still. He looks, pause finding the exact word, whole. I stand in the doorway.
Eli immediately. "I told you," he says. A sound escapes me, half laugh, half something that has no category. "You told me," I agree. He holds out his arms. I cross the room and I sit on his bed, and he hugs me the way a 7-year-old hugs, full commitment, no reservation, like his whole body decided this was the only thing happening right now. Pause. I hold him, and the quiet in my chest doesn't feel like absence anymore. It feels like after. All four of them are in the doorway. Caius, Rhett, Soren, Ren, standing in the threshold of this room like they don't want to break what's inside it. Eli looks at them over my shoulder, simply as if reporting a fact. "He stayed," Eli says. Rhett makes a sound. This time it is not almost a laugh. It is one. Short, quiet, entirely real. And it does something to the room that no one comments on and everyone feels. Ren steps in first. He sits on the other side of Eli's bed and checks his pulse the way he has done every morning for 3 weeks. And this time when he looks up, his eyes are bright and he is not trying to manage it. "Perfect," he says. To Eli, but his eyes flick to me. "Both of you," he says. Soren enters next. He goes to the wall where the monitor was and looks at the empty space. Quietly to the room. "The bloodlines are unified," he says. "All four. Aligned to a single frequency." He pauses. It held. Caius from the doorway. "Will it hold?" he asks. Soren, and this is the first time in 3 weeks I have heard him answer without a qualifier. "Yes," he says. Pause, one word. No hedge, no variable. From Soren, that is everything. Rhett is last. He comes in slowly, the way he does everything, like each step is deliberate. He stands at the foot of the bed. He looks at Eli, at me, at the gold mark on my finger, and underneath it, something that has always been there, now at the surface. "You're thin," he says to me. I look at him. 3 weeks of soul transfer will do that, I say. "The corner, we're feeding you properly now," he says. "Is that your way of saying you're glad I'm still here?" I ask. Rhett hold my eyes. That is the most Rhett has ever given anyone, and everyone in the room knows it, and no one says so. "Rhett likes you," he whispers to me. Rhett, without missing a beat, "I'm standing right here," he says. "I know," he says. We stay like that for a while. All 6 of us in Eli's room with the monitor off and the morning light coming through the east-facing window, the one Eli promised me back in the park, back before I knew what the promise would cost. A window that faces east so you see the morning first. Of course he kept it. The life lesson sitting in this moment, not announced, not narrated, just present. I walked into a grocery store alone. I walked out holding a child's hand. I signed a document that took something from me. And what I received in return, looking around this room, these people, this boy, was not what I expected. It was not a reward. It was not a trade. It was a belonging I had never been able to find by looking for it. The thing you are willing to give yourself for that is the thing that shows you who you are. I didn't know who I was before a quarter machine ring. I do now. Eli, looking up at me, that complete, unshakable certainty. "Are you happy?" he asks. I think about it honestly, the way he always does. "Yes," I say. He nods, like this is the confirmation of a fact that was always going to be true. "Good," he says. "Me too." The gold mark on my finger catches the morning light. The morning coming through the east window. First, just like he said. Full, warm, earned.
And for the first time in 23 years, the belonging is mine. Not borrowed, not transferred. Final, the voice settling into something quiet and complete. Mine. If this story moved you, if Auren's courage stayed with you, if Eli's certainty made you feel something you needed to feel, then this channel is exactly where you belong. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications so you never miss a story that was made to remind you what you're capable of. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what Auren's choice meant to you, or share this with someone who needs to hear that belonging is worth the cost. Every comment, every share, every new subscriber keeps these stories alive, and there are so many more coming. Do not miss what's next.